Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Very nice to see so many of you.
Hello.
Hi, Miss Myrek. I know I owe you a follow-up. I'm going to just allow a couple of moves. Hey, Yo-Yo. Hi, Denise. Thank you
Hi.
guys for coming on camera. That makes me feel very welcome. Hi, Miss Crawford in the chat. I do want to let everyone know that today's session is being recorded and it is being live streamed on our YouTube channel. So thank you for joining. You are not required to have your camera on, and I certainly invite and request that you put your lines on mute. This is an informational session. At the conclusion of today's presentation, we will open it up for some just open question and answers, and I'll stay on with you as we have them. But please know that absolutely everything is being recorded and, as I said, live streamed on our YouTube channel. So any questions that you ask will also be recorded and part of this official record and all of that. So it's very nice to see so many familiar faces. Some of you have absolutely been recipient of our SIPS program in the past. And so you may be eligible for moving up into our new category, which is SIPS 2.0. But I'm going to talk about everything that's going on with the SIPS program, where to access all the information, how to submit your application, all of that fun stuff. So feel free, again, if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat. Some of my teammates are on here. They may attempt to answer them in the chat, but really at the end is where we will come back and we will answer any and all questions that you have at the end. With that, I am going to queue up everything. Hopefully my computer is being accommodating and letting me do all the things that we want to do. For one of you who are on camera, if you could maybe give me a thumbs up if the screen share is working. Amazing. Thank you so much, Denise. Thank you so much, Miss Gwen. Thanks, Jessica. I appreciate that too. Wonderful. So we are the Children's Services Council, and we were created in 2020 to serve as a catalyst for positive change to improve the lives and outcomes of children, youth, and families in our community. And the way that we do that, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with the Children's Services Council, is that we take a portion of your ad valorem taxation, that's your property taxes, and we reinvest it back into the community, specifically in areas that our needs assessment has assigned or identified as in need of investment. We use words like investment opportunities or funding opportunities and not grants. And that is because we view the individuals, organizations that we fund as our partners. And when you are successful, we are successful. And so that starts with how we talk about our opportunities. We do not establish typical grantor-grantee relationships. For those of you who have worked with us, you'll already know that it's not a, hey, we're going to give you some money and then you just go and do great things and there's no follow-up. There's absolutely oversight. There's absolutely expectations for reporting, and what that looks like varies depending upon the type of funding opportunity that you're selected for. And then some of you may have heard that if you don't do what is expected of you, you are chased down and asked to please give the money back. So there's accountability measures. It's not just free money that's available out there. Today's particular program that we're talking about is our Small Investments for Program Success Initiative. This is designed specifically for organizations that have an operating budget of $150,000 or less. So I see a few of you that are on here that have much larger operating budgets. So I want to be very, very clear that this opportunity is for small organizations, small nonprofits in this space. So I just want to be very, very clear about that eligibility up front. If you come to our site, there's a couple of places that you can go to learn specifically about this opportunity. The always and foremost on our front page, you have this pink box that says funding opportunities. That's the one that you're going to want to start at almost always. This will have our historic archive of every funding opportunity that we have offered since inception, including our needs assessment, which was one of our very first things that we did, to our auditing firm that we choose, as well as all of our competitive funding opportunities that we place out there into the community. We have several different types of funding opportunities that we typically have. A request for applications or an RFA, a request for proposals, an RFP. We've done ITNs, which is an invitation to negotiate. And the rules for each of these are all a little bit different. The one I'm going to be talking about today is a standard request for applications. And what this means is that you'll submit an application and the decision-making authority entirely rest with the council. For our RFAs, we don't have really a review panel. It will go straight to the council, and the council members are the ones who will make the decisions for this particular program. If you click on it, it'll give you the basic overview of what the SIPS program is. And I'm very excited to share that we have a new category. It's called SIPS 2.0, which will go up to 25,000. And then you'll see here what the term of the investment opportunity is. So it's a July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. This is new compared to the program that we ran last year. Last year, we released 6-month funding opportunities, and we did it every quarter. This is the only time we will be releasing it for the year is right now. We will not reopen this until next year, and the funding will not start until June 1. So I wanted that's also a change from things that we have done in the past. After today, this first bullet that says register for the info session will change to view the info session, and it will take you directly to the YouTube channel, which some of you may be listening to from now in the future, joining in and learning a little bit more about this particular program. Some other changes that have taken place are highlighted in the SIPS 2025 info sheet. So I'm going to click on that. And hopefully when it opens in its new window, it's going to open for all of you. I'm going to ask my folks on camera, they'll maybe, if they see it, if it switched with me, maybe give me a thumbs up that it switched. Yes, thank you, Miss Lucas. Knew I could count on you. So I'm just everyone's except can grab this information right now. And so I'm going to share this because it's going to be very intentional about the design of the program. And it's going to go over some initial eligibility. If you submit an application and you do not meet the initial eligibility, your application will be returned to you, and you will not be allowed to fix it or cure it. But you would be allowed to apply next year when we reopen this opportunity. Ultimately, it's not just about funding programs, it's about building your capacity. Yes, you will be required to do programming. Yes, you will be required to report on that programming, but you'll also be required to participate in this cohort of learning so that you can increase your organizational capacity. When our programs that are serving families, children, and youth are stronger, then we know that the families will be stronger, and therefore our community will be stronger. So we're really trying to start by working with these emerging nonprofits to ensure that you have what you need to be successful. There are 2 opportunities, SIPS 1.0, really designed for that early stage capacity building. Maybe you've never been funded, maybe you are operating on what we call my own bank account, right? Because you know that you're doing good work and you're relying on your own funds, or you're self-funded. Lots of organizations start that way. And so the expectations for our SIPS 1.0 are going to be more of that capacity building work and less of the more stringent data entry work that you'll get to if you can graduate to SIPS 2.0. These are for our scaling promising programs that are ready for that next step to move from outputs to outcomes. So outputs might be, how many people did you serve? How many meals did you serve? How many youth did you connect with? Outcomes is going to be, what was the quality of that work that you did, and are those individuals better off? That's kind of at the core of that question that you might be looking for. This opportunity is best suited for small nonprofit organizations. You must be legally authorized to operate in Florida. If you are brand new and you've never registered your organization in SunBiz, if you don't have an IRS determination for your 501c3, then you will not be eligible for this program. You have to have your 501c3. It can't be pending. By the time you submit your application, you have to have that documentation that you are indeed a 501c3, and you have to be registered with the Florida Division of Corporations. Your annual budget cannot exceed $150,000. So, and you have to provide your organizational budget. We do have a recorded training on what an organizational budget looks like, because we discovered in doing this whole process that that some of our smaller nonprofits might struggle with that. There are community partners out there in the community at UPHS or NE or JMI that can help. United Partners for Human Services, the Institute for Nonprofit Innovation and Excellence, or the Jim Moran Institute, as well as some of our local chambers that can help you develop those budgets. But we do also have that free online training if you just want to maybe see a quick refresher on how to design a budget. You also must have been in operation for at least 24 months with at least 2 annual reports filed with the state. Now, I want to kind of throw a special caveat in here, especially for our SIPS 1.0, that if you're applying for that first initial investment, maybe you haven't been around for 2 years, we do have something called kind of like a guarantor or like a fiscal sponsor that maybe you have a partnership with. If you're a small organization, I'm going to use Healthy Start as an example. Maybe you're a small organization specifically dedicated to serving pregnant moms, but you're brand new and you're a startup and you don't meet this threshold. You're a nonprofit, you're registered with SunBiz, but you do not have 24 months with at least 2 annual reports filed with the state. But you go to Healthy Start and you say, hey, would you be willing to, in essence, sponsor? I kind of akin it to buying a car, and you don't have the credit to buy the car, and so your mom or your dad have to co-sign for you. That's kind of what the agreement is, just to make sure that you have that backing, so that that when the funding comes to you, that if the CSC isn't able to walk hand in hand with you on a given particular issue, that you have another resource. So it's about building and strengthening your network. If you're interested in finding a fiscal sponsor or that kind of guarantor, and you don't have any idea, feel free to give me a call and we can brainstorm on other organizations who are in that space. Ms. LaRose, I'm going to ask you to hold your questions until the end, please, but feel free to drop them in the chat so that if you don't want to forget, that we can scale back to them. Thank you. The second piece is that your program must align not only with the CSC Leon mission and our impact priorities, but this time our council has decided it is focused on 2 very specific outcomes: kindergarten readiness and youth mental health. So if you have in the past received funding from CSC to do just general youth development, or maybe to do food service in specific neighborhoods, that is not the priority this time. And so you will be asked in the application to identify which outcome you are applying toward and how your program is going to directly meet that need, and show kind of short-term, long-term goals that affiliate directly to that. So we're going to dive into that a little bit later in today's presentation, but I want to make sure that you see this part, because this is different from how we've done this program in the past. I think there's just some basic stuff about organizations cannot have a religious or worship requirement for participation. Many churches are 501(c)(3) and do really, really great work, outreach or programming. And as long as that outreach and programming is not a requirement for participation, then they are eligible. And also, you will be asked to sign a disclosure saying that you are not currently engaged in any legal disputes related to service delivery. So if in the past you have received funding from something and were not aligned, or you're in some sort of payment relationship right now with a particular funder, then unfortunately you would not be eligible for this particular investment opportunity. All right. That's the eligibility. So that's kind of first and foremost. If you have these things, then stick around while we dive into the next part. If you don't have these things and you are looking for some potential other opportunities, feel free to reach out to me separately. You can either email info@cscleon.org, or you can email procurement, procurement, @cscleon.org. Either of those will get you connected with our team as you can explore some other potential opportunities that may or may not come available in the future or are available in the community. All right, now the fun part, how it works. SIPS 1.0, we're kind of this is our build grant or our build investment. It's up to $15,000. You will have to identify exactly how you want to use the money. You will be required to submit monthly financial reports, tracking every penny that you spend. Participate in monthly coaching calls or visits during the space of the 12-month period. You will be invited to do a completion of pre-award training, and you'll do an organizational assessment at the beginning of the contract and at the end. Again, this is not just about financial support. It's about building that training, coaching, and structured reporting to ensure long-term sustainability. So that is the expectation of what you'll have to report on. You'll also have to report basic demographic and service counts for participants, but I'm going to say it's a low level. And what I mean by that is that if you've never collected data, if you're out there just doing great work, but you've never really collected data, this will be kind of your first experience into how you create and collect structured data from the families that you're serving and how you report it. It will not include any personal identifying information to start, but there are some other components that will be woven into the work that you do in terms of testimonials, site visits, things like that. But the full reporting will be your basic demographics and service counts. This is what we call outputs, just how many are you serving. If you are eligible and want to apply for SIPS 2.0, this is our scale investment. This is going up to $25,000, so it's a little bit more money for a little bit more work. You will be required to collect all enrollment data for every family that you serve and input that data into SAMIS. SAMIS is our Services and Activities Management Information System. So we call it SAMIS, but that is our data system, and you will have to collect personal identifying information for every family that you serve and be able to then report not only on their basic demographics and service counts, but also you're going to propose how do you propose to impact their life. So remember those 3 questions I asked at the beginning. How many are you serving? How well are you serving them? And are they any better off? And this is where we're really going into that, how well are you serving and are they any better off? So if you're selected for SIPS 2.0, then you will be required to do that extra layer of work. At our SIPS 2.0, we expect that you have some basic grant experience and management in the past, so you will only have to do quarterly financial reports and quarterly coaching calls, but you will be required to participate in the various capacity building trainings that we provide. I also want to put a caveat for eligibility. If you are applying for SIPS 2.0, you must have previously successfully completed SIPS 1.0 and received a letter that says you are eligible. If you are currently one of our SIPS investment partners and you're in their closeout process, make sure that you get with one of our team members, Amy Grissom or Prisha Malone, to see if you qualify for SIPS 2.0. Some of you might have already received your letters. But if you could potentially be eligible because you've gone through some other type of vetted program. Jim Moran Institute has one. United Partners for Human Services has one. And what you would need to do is get a letter from those organizations saying, yes, this organization, my organization participated in this program, and here's that either certificate that they provide you or the letter that says that they have that basic understanding. Each of the programs are a little bit different. Some of them are more one-on-one programs. Some of them are like fully vetted programs that you would have like earned a certificate from. But if you're going to apply for SIPS 2.0, you will need to have that proof, if you will, that you've gone through another program. If you're currently a SIPS 1.0, you can apply for 1.0 again. Like maybe you don't meet the eligibility for SIPS 2.0. So for example, you were a startup, you went through the 1.0 program, but you haven't been in existence for 2 years yet, right? And you want to go through it again. You are eligible to go through 1.0 twice if you're selected. So you are eligible to apply again. So all of you that are on here right now that aren't quite ready for 2.0, but have your letter that you're eligible to at least apply for more funding, you can in fact apply for 1.0. Here is just a quick cheat sheet of all the things that you're going to need to get through your application process. So you're going to need that determination letter, your SunBiz, your annual operating budget, that fiscal sponsor agreement like the example that I provided, your capacity building training documentation. You will also need at least one letter of reference from a service recipient or partner. We are not looking for a letter from the sheriff or a letter from the mayor that says you're a great person and this is a great program. We are looking from my family benefited from this program. I worked with this program as a partner and this is what we did. So we're not looking for an endorsement letter. We're looking for a letter of reference from a service recipient or a partner. Now, if you partnered with the sheriff or the mayor's office, right, on a particular project, then that's different. But we're not looking for letters of endorsement. We're looking for letters of reference to show that the program that you offer is in fact impactful, related to that area of focus that our council has deemed. The application deadline, we have made it March 4th at 10 p.m. because I get it. A lot of smaller organizations, right, are you have day jobs and maybe the only work that you can do on this is in the evening. But the portal is open right now and we're gonna walk through it in just a minute. And I want to strongly encourage you to go ahead, get in there and start your application. Do not wait until the last minute. There is a place that you can submit a video pitch where you can just from your phone or a Zoom, you can record a 2 to 3 minute video pitch. Maybe your writing skills aren't super great, or maybe you're like, my passion is not coming across in this written application, and you just really want to make that plea. You are allowed to record a 2 to 3 minute video pitch explaining your program's impact and funding request. And I'm just putting it out there that bonus points are available for that. The kind of last part in terms of the review and selection process is that first and foremost, your application will be evaluated on its alignment to the selected areas that I mentioned before: kindergarten readiness and youth mental health. We're going to be looking at the strength of your proposed program or your capacity building efforts based on those letters. The feasibility of your budget and your implementation plan. You'll see that when we get to into the sample application. If you say, I want to do X, and if you were to go into the general market right now and X cost $100 per person, and you ask for something that costs $400 per person, we're going to notice that, right? You want to be very thoughtful in your funding request. How did you come up with that number? Don't just say, I need $10,000 to do this. How did you come up with that number? Are you proposing to serve 100 kids and these materials cost about $10 per kid? And that's how you came up with this number? Possibly. So be very, very thoughtful about your budget, and that will go a very, very long way. When we get into the portal and I show you where you kind of build out your budget, you'll actually have to include a narrative for every item you select. And for every item that you select, that it needs to match. That narrative needs to match what you're asking for. So if you're like, I want $25 because I'm going to do $5 gift cards for a parent engagement at a community event, that's a narrative that would support that budget ask. That's just an example. Demonstrate a commitment to the training and collaboration. For those 2.0s, your evaluation capacity and data collection strategy will also be considered. Step 4 is kind of what to expect and when. The applications are due April 4th. Our council is expected to make a decision on who they're going to fund in late April. But again, the funding will not start until July 1. There will be some training that happens during the month of May and or June. So just kind of keep that in mind, that before you receive any funding, you will be asked to go through training. Disbursements, in terms of how you receive the funds, they are released quarterly on successful completion of reporting requirements. Typically, we would give, let's just say that you ask for $10,000, just because $10,000 is easier math when I divide it by 4. That typically speaking, we would give 25% at the completion of your first deliverable, which would be an executed contract and that you participate in all of the training and submitted all of your required documents, in which case you could get up to that first 25%. Then depending upon what you're proposing, your program might be something that only happens in the fall and you're looking to have all the funds then. And so we would work with you on developing that the required reporting elements before you can receive those funds. We are looking at doing quarterly disbursements. So keep that in mind as you're designing your program, that you're not going to get all of the money up front. It will be doled out. So you may have to have other sources and then seek reimbursement as the funds come out. If you need advances, that is something that we can consider. But the strength of your proposal, if you have that timeline in mind to start, that's going to bode better for your application. Here's just a list of use of funds in accordance with our fiscal guidelines, and it's just allowable expenses, what can happen with the money, what can't happen with the money. We sometimes see things like, hey, I want to be able to buy tablets. That's allowed. Hey, I want to be able to do, I want to use some of these funds to join a nonprofit support organization like UPHS, or send one of my team members for professional development because that's how I'm building that organizational capacity. All of these are examples of allowable expenses. Funds cannot be used for real estate purchases or mortgage payments. They cannot be used to fix your air conditioner and buy you a new air conditioner. They cannot be used to buy you a van. I know that some of our previous funding in the very first year that we released with kind of what we call our gap or our bridge funding, that we did allow some of those things, but that was filling very specific gaps. Our SIPS program is not designed for those. I hope it goes without saying that funds can also not be used to hire a lobbyist or for any religious or political activities. All right. I'm going to go back to this area. I'm actually going to click on the home button because I want to show you if you land here and you forgot this funding opportunities and you scroll down, this will be up until at least the application portal closes. So you can just click on local funding opportunity. And this just gives you an overview of everything that I just presented, of how it's different, what it's meant for, all the basic information. You can get that info sheet again. You can register. This will switch to view the recording here. So there's two kind of different ways to get in, if you will. And then this explore the portal. This is going to take you into that application. And again, so if you click here, it'll go to the open app, the open portal, and also from the funding opportunities page. If you click this button, enter application portal, it's going to go all to the same place. You can bookmark this if you'd like. This is where all of our RFPs, RFAs, ITNs, all of our funding opportunities are listed here. So you'll see that this, in fact, is our SIPS program. Our open date, our application deadline is all listed here. Click View Details, Apply. You're going to get some basic information. So before we go anywhere else, I want to show you a couple of things up here. Is that start a new application and start a new application are the same button. Once you start your application, you can save and come back. You'll have to sign in to view any applications you have pending. You can also ask a question, and when you ask a question, it'll get published down here, and then all the responses will be published as well. So any questions that you ask today, I will actually do my best to convert and have them here. So if you're like, hey, I heard a question on the training, or I have another question, while you can submit them via email, this is better because chances are if you have a question, somebody else might have a question as well. And so we will drive you back to please use this place to ask your question. You can make it as specific as you want. Please know it will be a public record. That anytime that you submit anything to us, it's always a public record. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. You can also from here download the PDF application, and I'm going to encourage you to start there of downloading the PDF application. And then I'm going to open it up and make sure that it's sharing on your screen. Give it just a second. All right. This is where I'm going to encourage you to start. Everything that you need to know, the portal looks just like this. So kind of scrolling through, you'll have your first organizational profile. This is just information about who you are, what you're applying for, all of that. If you have applied for an investment with us before, you will, in fact, your name will already be there. So under organization or agency, you can just find your organization so that you don't have to restart any of this stuff. There's going to be some basic information about the primary contact person for the application. So if there's any issues with your application, once you're selected, if you're not selected, if there's a question, our team will reach out to whoever is listed here. So if you're the grant writer, but you're not the person who knows about the opportunity or the main person that should be contacted, please make sure that you put their name here and not yours. You can be the grant writer and put somebody else here. That's perfectly fine. But that I just want to drive that home that whoever is ultimately should be notified if they're selected is who goes here. The agency description, this is where you're going to describe your nonprofit, right? This is who are you? What do you do? What's your mission? What's your vision? How long have you been operating in Leon County? Who currently funds you? Things like that. This is not where you're saying, I need the money for A, right? If you have a website, please list your website here. Here's the first part of this eligibility check. We need your 501 determination letter. We need your business and corporation date, the first date that your organization was established. We need a copy of that SunBiz registration, your most, and here you're going to upload your two most current Division of Corporation SunBiz certificates. If you are not sure how to get that, by all means, submit an email and we can walk you through exactly where to go to find your SunBiz registration. Under current budget amount, this is where you're going to put in what your annual income revenue and indicating, like including all private and grant funds that you might have received. That's where you're going to put that total for the annual year. What is your total budget amount? And then you need to upload your budget that shows this is all my sources of funding that matches that dollar amount that I've just reported up here. And this is how we spend it. So income and expenses. And ideally, you should be showing a zero balance between the two so that your income and your expenses is leveled out so that you have a balanced budget. If you have questions about budget and creating a budget and what should that look like, again, we have that online training for you. Next, you'll actually indicate SIPS 1.0, 2.0, if you are 2.0, or if you're 1.0, or even 2.0. I think that was one of the questions that I've already been asked, and so we'll be updating that, is that if you've been in business for less than 24 months and you're applying with the fiscal sponsor, you would indicate that here and include that letter or that agreement with whoever that person might be. Your contract experience. Now, if you're applying for 1.0 and you have contract experience, you can certainly fill this in if you want. It is required for 2.0. And then if you've ever been previously funded with us, we'll ask you some questions about that and to get that eligibility letter. Your capacity building experience is where we're going to ask you to identify and describe any of that participation. Again, this is required for 2.0. You're going to need to include at least one letter of reference from that previous service recipient. So I just want you to know that this is where you would upload that. That's your organizational profile. Second section, program proposal. How much are you asking for? The total amount that you were requesting. And this amount here needs to equal the amount that you're going to ask for and you're going to label out in the budget section, which we'll get to in just a minute. You can start right off by uploading a link to a video pitch. Maybe you're saving it on your on like a YouTube channel, or you have it on a Google Drive, wherever you want to do that you can kind of share that link to that video pitch. And this is where you're going to choose your primary impact area, either kindergarten readiness or youth mental health. Notice there is not an other, and it is not select all that apply. You choose one, and then you make the pitch for why your program is related to that particular topic. The need is where you go. This is a space where you describe the need for which you're requesting funds. If you have access to publicly available source data, include that in there. That this is really where you're going to spend the time describing why we should invest in this space and in you. And then request is where you're going to say, this is how we're going to use the funds to address the need. So you've identified either kindergarten readiness or youth mental health. This is why our services are needed in this community, and this is how we're going to address the need, right? Need, response. And then immediately below that, alignment, right? This is why my organization is best suited to provide these services to address this need. Do you see how it kind of scaffolds on top of one another for what we're looking for? You'll then be asked to identify your service unit type. Are you primarily serving children and youth, or are you primarily serving adult and caregivers? If you're serving families as a collective unit, then you're going to choose that adult caregiver. Who's your primary participant? Kind of think through it like that. And this is that step toward building your organizational capacity and data collection work. This next question is about the number of individuals that you serve currently. So we're looking for unduplicated individuals that you serve in a year without any funds from CSC, right? So this is like, what do you do without any help from CSC? And then what would you do, right, with exclusively with these monies? So maybe right now you have a small program, like a pre-K program, and you're serving 20 kids and it's all private pay. And man, you'd really love to be able to offer scholarships. And with the money that you're asking for in the course of a year, you would be able to offer kind of wraparound care scholarships to 10 additional youth. So in that case, you would put 20 up here that I currently serve 20, and with or without you, I'm serving 20. But with these funds that we're requesting, we would serve 10. Timeline, dive into if you were to receive the funding, how would you implement your program? And what we're going to be looking for in this space is that understanding what the contract term is. We're looking for July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Well, how are you going to implement your program in that time frame? We've had applications on previous SIPS where they said, hey, we want to do a program that starts in April. And they were applying in March, but the funds weren't going to be released until July. See, like that didn't work over so well. That particular applicant was not selected. So keep that in mind in terms of timeline of how you'll use the funds when and all of that. Data collection is how you'll describe the types of service data that you're going to collect. Remember that for 1.0, you have to have at least basic demographics and service counts. For 2.0, you're going to have even more. How are you going to impact them? So the questions were, how many did you serve? How well did you serve them? And are they any better off? Well, this is that, are they any better off is usually through some sort of assessment tool. If you are applying for 2.0, you will be required to identify some sort of tool that you're going to use that shows that the family is better off. Maybe it's an outcome measure, maybe it's a pre-test, post-test, something like that. If you'd like to learn more about this, definitely submit a question and we can walk through some of those examples and samples. We have a wealth of knowledge on our team that can point you toward, we can't select for you or tell you what you should do, but we can certainly point toward tools and resources that are available to help you create a strong program proposal. That is the end of that section. The almost the last section is budget. These are all sorts of budget line items. All of them, most of them, I think, are available in terms of descriptions in our fiscal guidelines. Most of them, hopefully, will be self-explanatory, but kind of thinking through, yes, I need money to pay this. I need money to pay this. For every item that you select, you will then be asked to identify the exact amount and then the narrative. So if you say staff training, you select staff training, I need this much for staff training, and then describe the narrative, and that should be how was that amount calculated? Like, how did you come up with that amount? Oh, I need $500 for staff training. Why? Registration for the training that we want, the professional development opportunity that we're going to send 2 of our staff to is $250 a person, right? That's a narrative that justifies that. In the system, it will tally how much you're asking for, and it will do the math for you so that when you get to the total at the bottom of this section, this should match what you asked for and the top of your program proposal. That's going to be the first thing I'm looking for when we're doing our eligibility checks. Does your budget match what you asked for? If it does not, your application would be sent back to you. That like you need to make sure that it balances. And then we're almost there to the end. Partnerships. We want you to have at least one partner that you are working with to support your operation and your funding. So if you have other funders, this is a great opportunity to identify them. You're going to identify who they are, either the organization or the lead person, a phone number and an email, and the description of what that partnership means. And then include, if you have it, a support letter or an MOU that kind of outlines that. For our 2.0 applicants, we'll want to see that support letter MOU. For our 1.0, phone number, email, and a description of the partnership is fine. We will do that kind of reference check, if you will, to make sure that what you've said in this section is legit. We are asking that every applicant do this at least once, but you can, under partnerships, you can add as many as you'd like. So if you've been primarily organized and funded on barter for the last 2 years, you don't really have any income coming in, but you've been trading skills and doing things like that, it's a great place to identify that in your partnerships. Any of those kind of like in-kind assets that you might have received over the course of your program's operation, great place to identify that here. And last but not least is the staffing plan. We are at the home stretch, you guys, in terms of this application. I know it seems like it's a long application, but it's fairly straightforward in terms of what do I want? Like, who am I? What do I want? What do I think that I can do? How am I going to spend the money? Some partnerships, and then just staffing. For staffing, it's who's going to be in charge of implementing the program, and tell us a little bit about that individual. For 1.0, that's probably you that's here today. It's your program implementer. Like this might be your passion project. I see a couple of you on here. I know you, right? It's just describing who you are. Oftentimes with nonprofits, you invest in the person. I'm having a Shark Tank moment, right? Where you're like, I don't know about your product, but you, I believe in. This is that opportunity to really sell yourself. For 2.0, we're going to ask you for an organizational chart. Current and proposed. So you might be bringing on a staff. So again, you'll see that kind of difference. If you're 1.0 and you have an organizational chart, you can put it in there. It will be required for 2.0 of just what does your organizational chart look like? And you want to depict, like maybe this is currently what you have, maybe it's just you, and you want to use these funds to bring in a part-time assistant. And then so you can be like, identify that on your organizational chart of like current, proposed. And the last thing that we'll ask you to do is make that attestation that you just is kind of a pseudo background screening that you're not currently involved in any reason that you wouldn't clear a background screening. And I thought that it also that this I don't see here the form to upload that you're not currently involved in any legal action. So I'll make sure that form would fall here as well. All right, that was a lot. The last thing that I'm going to show you, and then I'll spend the last 10 minutes on questions and answers, is I'm going to go back to starting the application. And that's here. You just click the blue button, start a new application. If you're a new user, you're going to set it up, first name, last name, email. It should email you pretty quickly. It comes from something called Web Author, so it might go to your spam. So I just wanted to kind of let you know to be on the lookout for that. I'm going to very quickly, I think it's the same. Let's see. Existing user. Wonderful. So it takes me right to the page. You'll see here that it looks almost identical to that PDF document that I showed you, including each of the sections, right? So we have our organizational profile, program proposal, budget, partnership, staffing plan. So once you're in here and you kind of start everything and you're kind of inputting all of the different pieces, once you have everything in the section, you can click mark this section complete and say next. Now, this is saying, wait a minute, you're not ready to go on to the next section. I need all of this stuff, right? So I'm going to uncheck this, but maybe I've started on some of it. Maybe I know that my current budget is 100,000, and I have my SunBiz registration, and that I was incorporated in 2019, and there's a couple of things that I can like super quickly, put in here. Now I want to be like, okay, well, I just want to save and continue later. Well, see here that it doesn't say complete, so I'm just going to click save and continue later. Now that part. Those parts have already been input. Now, if I come back into my program proposal, I'm just going to click here where it says modify. Modify. Now I can go into the second section, program proposal. Okay, I'm asking for, I'm applying for SIPS 1.0 and I want the full 15,000. That's what I'm asking for. Right? And I can start working on some of the things that I know that I'm going to be working in this space. You can hop around and kind of get to your budget. You can start building things out, right? So here, with the money, I know that I know that I want to bring on, I'm going to bring on an assistant, right? And for easy math again, I like easy math, you guys. I'm going to do $1,000 because one assistant is, for 10 hours at $10 an hour. Not that we are paying, or excuse me, 100. I wanted to do 100 hours at $10 an hour, right? This is the start of it. You'll see that it's kind of added up. Now, new record. Now, I also know that we're going to need to do purchase some office supplies for my new assistant, but I only need $100 for that, right? And then I put in here estimated at. Now, you might say it's actually $10. We could get a little complicated, estimate at $10 per person per month. And then we could show, right, 10 times 12. So really I need $120, right, save entry. And now you'll see the tally that this is where I'm working toward. Now, once the section is complete and you mark the section complete, and then you kind of go to the next section, this thing will happen over here. Budget is complete. Once all of these have green checks, then the button for submit will appear for you. Not until you have green checks will it appear. Once you hit submit, it's going to pop up and say to you, "Are you sure?" Right? Are you sure? Because once it's in, you don't get to go edit it. But you can save and continue later as much as you want, as long as you hit submit by 10 p.m. On the day that it is due. You have a nice, convenient little timer up here letting you know how much time you have left. I am going to very quickly just show you one more time how to get in. I'm going to log out real quick. At least I think I'm going to log out. I don't even remember how to log out because I'm always logged in. I think I click on this and scroll down, log out. Here we go. I'm going to go back to the main page, enter application portal. Here I am, view details apply. Now, I know I've started an application, but I don't see it here, and that's because I'm not signed in. So let me click sign in, come back over, and I'm going to sign in. Now you'll see, oh, look, there's my app. There's the one that I started. And please stop, don't click start a new application yet. Some of you will click that blue button because you're just like, where'd it go? Where'd it go? I've tried multiple times. It's still here. You click on it, you're back at that view page, you click modify, and you're back into the application. All right. With that, I want to thank everyone for joining me and being interested in this opportunity. I am going to now go over to the questions that are in the chat and kind of walk through them. All right. One of the questions was, can funds be used for supplemental pay? For example, a program manager or data collection person. Funds may be used for supplemental pay depending upon if the new work is associated with this program or not. So for example, if you are currently receiving funds from CSC for something else, maybe it's our youth mentoring program or family strengthening program, and you're wanting to give a pay bump to one of your current staff, that is not allowed. But if you are running a program and you want to expand it to serve 5 more kids in an after-school program, and because of that you want to have another staff person on or stay later or something like that to serve those additional kiddos, that would be allowed. So it's going to depend upon the design of the program that you are proposing. The next question. No, that is a message that says someone has reached their recording limit. Next question. I have not been able to get funding to fund the nonprofit. I use my own funds for anything I do. But I have also used various gift cards. I don't currently have a bank account that will show money coming in. Unfortunately, you will have to show some sort of budget. If you do not have a bank account, this investment's probably not for you. I would refer you to one of our community building partners, so that you can at least get established with that. There's lots of really great financial institutions that are out there. We can certainly share the ones that we work with. We can refer you over to the Small Business Development Corporation, that you can chat to about like how do you get started in that part. If you do not have a bank account, we won't be able to fund you. You'll need to show that. Now, does your bank account need to show the income in and out? No, but you need to have a budget that shows this is how much I raise. Maybe it's private donations and maybe it's only $10,000 and that's all you've been able to do. But I got this $10,000 that came in and that and this is how I spent it. And you're going to show that budget, right? That's acceptable, right? That's wholly acceptable. You don't have to then show, and here's a copy of my profit and loss statement. But you are going to need to show that you've been in existence and registered in Sunbiz for at least 2 years. Maybe you've only raised $8,200 and you've only ever spent $8,200, or maybe you've raised $8,200 and you've spent, $1,600 and you're running on that deficit. We can work with that type of thing, but we're looking for, do you know how to build a budget? Do you know how to show your income versus your expenses? This is designed for that small business, but you will need an actual bank account to be able to receive the funds from us. If you don't have an actual bank account, then we won't be able to work directly with you.
So, I'm sorry, real quick. With the bank account
I'm sorry,
thing, if
I'm
you,
sorry, wait, pause. I'm looking for you. Who's Jasmine?
Jasmine,
Hi,
yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
Your camera wasn't on, so I lost you there for a second.
Well, I'm sorry, but so you have a bank account, but you probably say I have a bank account. I only used it once, and that was to build the website. Um, but I put the money in there for it, but I
As
really
long
don't
as you
have
have a bank account, right, we would be able to work with you.
as long as I
That's
can build a
different.
budget.
That's different from the budget. Okay.
Okay,
That's showing your so our priority funding, you actually have to show your banking documents. You have to show your position of financial solvency for our big funding opportunities, right? So if you had looked at our youth development one that we just closed on, and I see a couple of our partners here that went through that process. They'll tell you that you had to show your profit and loss statement. I need a statement of financial position, things like that. SIPS is different, right? SIPS gets it that you might not have income, therefore your in and out might not be there, right? But you will, if your proposal, if your narrative and your budget works and you're selected, you will have to have that bank account. But that's not a part of the application. Like, let's just say for a second that you bank at Loyalty Credit Union. Shout out to my boy Terrence. If you that's where you bank. Like you don't have to submit that with your application, but if you're selected, you'll have to give us that information because we'll set up your disbursements through that.
I
Okay,
get you. I understand. Thank you.
understood. Perfect. The next question is, in trying to complete the application, the page will not allow me to type in my organizations. I noticed that too. Ramon, give me a minute with that. When I hang up with you guys, I'm going to go figure out what's going on with the coding. That should not be happening. I think I know what it is. And so just hold tight on that part, please. I think I have tagged something on, and when I was testing the system, it automatically recognized me. So just hold on that. That'll be fixed by midnight tonight, I promise. Are ultrasound services still listed under kindergarten readiness? This is a great question. So Yo-Yo, you'll have to make that pitch. Now I will say that when we looked at kindergarten readiness as a council, we understand that kindergarten readiness starts at conception. When a child is healthy and a mother is healthy and there's positive parent-child interaction and bonding that occurs in utero at the birth of the baby and subsequently in those first few years of life, then we know that those children are more well-adjusted to enter kindergarten ready. Now, it is a stretch because this is a 12-month program. So you're going to have to make that, if that's the pitch you're making, in that the need, the request, and the alignment, that's where you're going to have to show that connection. Similarly, I see several of you on here that I recognize from previous SIPs that were primarily funded under School and Success, Youth Development, right? I see Miss Gwen, I see Miss Tolver, I see Miss Floyd. Like, I recognize some of you that are here with, I see Miss Crawford, right? That have been previously funded under a youth development program. Now, is your program associated with youth mental health? Maybe. Is that part of your curriculum? Maybe. Now, if your focus is primarily on keeping kids safe and off the streets and out of the juvenile justice system, that is not this priority. This priority is looking for how are you addressing youth mental health? Now, that could come in lots of different ways, by being career exploration or bringing in wellness checks to a program that you might already have. There's lots of things that are out there. Doing those check-ins, that's the easier connect, but it's up to you to make that pitch of this is the need, this is what we do, and this is how it aligns to your priority. I recognize it's after 4, so if anyone wants to drop off, you feel free to. I am going to stay on and go through all of the questions, and if you have additional questions, feel free to hang on, and then I'll stay open for just a little while longer. Okay, the next question that we received is, if we're in a state of rebuilding and do not have the funding to pay staff at the current rate, can we apply for support for that currently existing staff? Possibly. So we do have a prohibition on something called supplantation. So for example, if you are intending, I'm going to do easy math again, guys, because I like easy math. You have a staff person and you want to pay them $10 an hour, but right now you're only able to afford to pay them $8 an hour, and you really want to give them that bump. You're going to have to show how the staff pay increases, like how is that related to the work that you're going to do? Because if you're currently serving 10, again, easy math, if you're currently serving 10 kids with a staff person at $8 an hour, and you're only going to serve 10 kids, but now you want to pay them $2 more, that's just a pay increase for the same work that you're already doing. But if you're going to bring on more kids that you're serving and pay them more, there's where that kind of, there's wiggle room for that. Again, it's going to be based on what you pitch, what the need is, why you need it. And then when you do that narrative, if you can make the justification for why it's needed, and the reviewers, it resonates with them, then that's certainly allowable. It's with SIPS, we have our fiscal guidelines of what's allowable, what's not allowable, but with SIPS, it's a little bit more flexible because we understand that we're building organizational capacity. Now, my fear for you would be that you get it, you increase them, and then next year, like once you've done SIPS 1.0, maybe next year you don't get 2.0. And then where are you at in terms of can you sustain that change? So that's something for you to definitely be thinking about for sustainability purposes. Next question. Currently, we serve students and parents, and we help through donations, but we'd like to serve the same students, even if the parents aren't able to donate. Is this okay? So this would be replacing private pay in essence with dollars. And there is a precedence for that. If you received money, let's just say you're receiving money from the Community Foundation of North Florida to offer scholarships, and now and you serve 10 kids with those scholarships, and now you're wanting to serve the same 10 kids with this funds, that wouldn't be allowed. But this idea of private pay, it's a little bit more flexible, especially in your case of donations, because you're not guaranteed those funds. In essence, you might, if you still received those donations could be used to purchase other things potentially, but it's really going to come down to your budget. So if in your budget you say, we're expecting to raise $5,000, and this is how we're going to use that $5,000, and that $5,000 is offsetting the cost of tuition or participation fees, then we would expect that to stay there. Now, if you say we raise $5,000 and we do tuition fees with that, and we're serving 10 kids with that, but we want to serve 20 kids, right? There's a little bit of wiggle room there. So it's all about how you budget. So that's one thing for you to really consider, how it's allocated. Because what you don't want to do is say, we have $5,000 in donations, and then down here you say you're spending $5,000 on tuitions or tuition and scholarships or whatever it might be. And then you're like, oh, I got this money from CSC. I'm going to move that $5,000 up to supplies and put the $5,000 from CSC in there. That's called supplantation, and you cannot do that. So think about that budget that you have. What money do you have coming in, and how are you spending it, right? You can't replace those funds with anything. But when it comes to donations, if it's budgeted, that's what you think that you'll raise. You have to decide in terms of, is that the best place that you want to put those funds? Okay, we've got some really detailed questions, you guys. Should our program run from September through May, requiring approximately $2,700 per month for operations, which would equate to about $25,000? Could you clarify the process for drawing down funds from the investments? Specifically, what are the steps, documentations, requirement, etc.? So how it's set up currently, but this could be a unique situation because you can request advances. How it's set up to operate currently is that upon contract award, you would receive 25% of your contract award upfront July 1, once you kind of finalize everything. You have that, and then for your next disbursement, it will be based on your timely submission of an approved narrative report. Now, if you're SIPS 1.0, we're looking for those every single month, that you're tracking how you're expending everything. And if you're like, hey, to do the program, I actually need 43% upfront. Well, we're going to give you that first 25%. And then when you're working with your coach through this process, they'll be able to negotiate some of that with you. It will be highly individualized based on your need. If you do not submit your reports, you won't get any more money, right? And if you don't submit any reports, we'll say, give us back the money that we gave you. So keep that in mind of how you're operating, that to access additional funds, whatever that amount may be. In an ideal world, it's going to be 25%, 25%, 25%, because that's what makes sense for us. But we understand that that's not always how it's going to operate for you. So you keep that in mind, that you will not be receiving $25,000 up front or $15,000 for our 1.0s. You won't be receiving those funds up front. They'll be doled out as you demonstrate your successful completion of implementation and reporting. Can an organization apply for both pre-K and youth mental health grants? Number one, they're not grants, they're investment opportunities. Number two, no. You can only submit one application. For even with, and I know a lot of the programs that you might be working on could maybe be both, right? They are really intended for different audiences. So choose one, make your pitch for it, and you can only submit one application. Another way to consider our funding, ask. We currently provide our program for free to all participating Title I schools, but this is not sustainable. Could we instead ask for funding for those scholarships? This is something we have done in the past, is being able to offer scholarships to programs. But in the case, and I think that I know the program that you're asking about, In this case, I would have it go more toward your program supplies or how you do things and wouldn't issue it as scholarships. The idea of scholarships implies if somebody wanted to participate, they would have to pay a fee. And if you have historically allowed free participation, think through how these funds could enhance your service delivery. So maybe it's the paying of a consultant to do a mental health wellness check-in. Maybe it's paying for the t-shirts or the materials to enhance the work that you're doing. So that's something for you to consider, and that by enhancing this work, it's going to allow you to serve 10 more girls, that type of thing. Will this year-round program require us to implement programming for a certain number of months, or are we able to select our program year? Yes, you will be able to describe your program year, but you will be required still to implement all of that reporting. So if you're SIPS 1.0 and you are applying specifically for support for a back to school event, right? And you're like, I need $10,000 to do this back to school event. You have 12 months to implement that, right? But it's a back to school event. You're gonna get the money in July. You're gonna want to spend all of that, and you're gonna be done in the middle of September because back to school's already happened, right? That is certainly a possibility of what you could do for your organization if you wanted to, if that's what you wanted to pitch. And so you would not be required to contain it. I will tell you, that's not what the council is looking at paying for. That's not the type of programs they're looking for. If you're instead thinking, oh, well, we're going to do 3 different like after school events or family community engagement events around youth mental health. We're going to do 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring. And really, we're going to be done in April. and there's no more activities after that. That's also allowable and more in line, I think, with what the council is looking at. I don't want to speak for them, but if you go back and listen to all the recordings of the council members talking about what they're looking for, that would be more in line with the type of programming that they would be more keen on investing in. So just kind of keep that in mind. I will say that something different this year compared to last year is that you don't see sponsorship listed as one of the options for funding. If you have a program and it directly aligns with our mission, our executive director does have discretionary funds to do sponsorship requests. They have to completely align with the work that we are doing. We are currently tapped out for the year, but we are planning our budget year for next year starting October 1. So all of our sponsorship dollars for the current year through September 30th have all been asked to have that opportunity. So thought I'd share all of that with you. And I think that is the last question. So we'll hang out for a couple more minutes if anyone has any additional questions.
I do.
Here. Hi, Jessica.
Hi. I didn't know if it was me or Jasmine that you were gonna call on, but
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw Jessica's hand. My apologies.
well, I do have a question, but I'll wait till after Jasmine goes.
You can go.
Oh, okay. Question. So while we're creating a budget, and if we list something on our budget that turns out like maybe we didn't do a thorough enough narrative, or maybe we put it in the wrong spot, like it was under a sponsorship when we really could have moved other funds around and it could have been used for supplies, will the application then be like basically negated because they'll be like, oh, this doesn't align with our
So I want to give a shout out to the CSC Leon team here. One thing that they know is budgets. And if you are selected and approved for funding, now if you ask for 10,000 and then you get into the budget audit process and you're like, oh no, I under budgeted for insurance, or I didn't think about insurance at all, can I get $1,200 more? The answer in that case will be no. You got approved for 10,000. If we need to amend some things or move some things around, the team will help you do that. Ideally, they're going to do that in our kind of our budget audit period, which means that if you've been selected, they're going to review that budget before they issue that contract. We're going to have some training. We're going to sit down with you and be like, did you think through everything? Because this is what you got, right? And all our team will do is help you make it stronger. But you can't be like, hey, we want, this, and this. And then you come in, you're like, oops, just kidding. I want to change it. And now I want to do it completely over here. Like, they're going to guide you through that process to say that's reasonable or that's not reasonable. And then also throughout the process of as you're spending the money, you might discover, oh, wow, I discovered a partner halfway through implementation, right? And they're willing to cover that. So now I have $500 that I had budgeted for this. Can I move it? Well, as long as you have that conversation and you amend your budget with us before you move it, I want to say before you move it, then that should be okay. Again, you're going to be working for SIPS 1.0. You're going to be having monthly calls with a coach, with a team member of like looking through that, just a check-in. Now, they might not be an hour long. They might be a 15-minute check-in. It might be a 5-minute check-in. I'm doing great. Here's my report. Got any questions? Let's roll, right? That might be what it is, but it might be the, hey, I'm looking here and you are completely overspent in this category and underspent over here. Let's talk about a budget amendment. Let's walk you through that process so that we can align things the way that we need to align them. And the goal is to keep your eyes on the money so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh, well, I spent 500 over there. So because I spent it over there, I'm just going to move it over here. And you just make that decision on your own. That's what's not allowed, right? That's the part that's not allowed. Work in partnership with your funder because we want you to be successful, and we're going to teach you these processes because our goal again is to get you in the future to bigger pots of money. And if we're trusting you with the small amount to be able to like figure all that process out so that then if you get larger amounts of funding in the future, when we have even more strict rules, you'll understand them, whether it's with the city, the county, federal dollars, state dollars, us, it doesn't matter. But so we're a little more flexible with SIPS because we're teaching and coaching. So I hope that answered your question, Jessica.
I mean, I think I guess for me, I gather most of that, but I just want to make sure that what I'm hearing you say is the CSC will provide guidance with the budget once you've been approved. And I just want to make sure that the budget won't, like, if CSC, the council reads your budget application, they can see what you're doing and the services you're going to provide, just making sure they won't negate your whole application based off of that budget component. If they like, oh, why is she putting this in?
They might.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, they might see your annual budget and then you ask for more money and you don't include a very detailed narrative and they go, why is she doing that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to fund her.
Mm-hmm.
100% they might.
Right. Okay. Will they have 100%. Any type of, can any of us utilize or ask questions pertaining to our specific application or our specific budget before our application period closes?
You can submit questions through the portal. And as long as they are through the portal, right? Some of the responses we can give kind of those, we wouldn't be able to say, I recommend you move this line item to this line item, but we can kind of talk in theoreticals, but it would all be through the portal as long as that question gets submitted by the deadline for any of those types of questions. And it's all done in the public that everybody can see and access that information, then that is fine. If you are looking for more specific information about like, is this allowed? Is this not allowed? We can say yes and no. Should we do this? How do we do this? Our response will be, you should reach out to our community capacitor builders through programs like UPHS, NE, and JMI.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jasmine.
Yes, ma'am. It's just two simple questions. I wanted to know, do the program have to already be started?
Kind of. You have to be a nonprofit that's existed before now. But if you have a startup, right, and you can find like a fiscal sponsor or a guarantor, a co-signer in essence. So I use the example of Capillary Healthy Start. You want to do a prenatal program, and it's a brand new program, right? But you haven't existed, or you don't have hardly anything, right? Like you've been operating on a shoestring. You're only in Sunbiz for about 12 months now, or maybe you incorporated in January, right? You would not be able to apply by yourself. You would need to have a partnership letter. But because you're a prenatal program, and Miss Jasmine, I don't know anything about your program. But you could be like, hey, Cabell Healthy Start, let me tell you about my program. So I'm gonna give you an example of Sister Friends, and a dear friend of mine in the community was in an island and like was involved with a pregnancy program, and she brought it to the community and said, I really want to do this, and she pitched it, and she went to a couple of different places, and she ended up over at Capitol Area Healthy Start, and they were like, I love this program, right? And they helped to support it, and they kind of co-sponsored it. That was before the CSC existed, but that's an example of a community partnership that they then also stepped into the space of being kind of that co-signer or that fiscal agent or sponsor.
And also, if we do have a partner, do it have to be in Tallahassee, like the partnership, or
That is a great question, Jasmine. They have to be a nonprofit. They have to be registered to do business in the state of Florida. We
okay,
have not said that they have to be a nonprofit based in Leon County. That could change in the future. I'm going to, if you will allow me, to pin that question, and I will put it in the chat. I think it's fine. But I'm gonna have to defer to our executive director and get back to you on that one. It's a great question,
okay,
Jasmine. I will get a response to you within 24 hours.
okay. And but our program, since we're getting funding through Leon County, have to be through in Leon County,
Your program can only serve. Mm,
Leon County.
Your program can only use these funds to serve Leon County residents. Your program could be a Big Bend program, but these funds can only serve Leon County residents.
Okay,
Okay, great
thank
questions.
you.
Yo.
Hey,
Hi.
everybody. So, I found myself in a unique situation where I was a SIPS recipient last year, of course, and this year I'm still not eligible for the 24 months. So I'm not sure whether I should reapply for SIPS 1.0 or if I should look into the fiscal sponsor option, simply because I have substantiated many relationships or partnerships throughout the community. And I don't even know if that's a question you can answer for me, or do I look at the eligibility requirements, or because I think I'm eligible for either one. So, and I don't want to choose the wrong one.
In
And
your
you know what
particular
I mean? I'm
example,
like,
no,
oh my God.
yeah, no matter what, Yo-Yo, you're going to need to find that co-sponsor because the 24 months is new. And that came not from programs like yours, but from other past recipients who we had we had that requirement, we would not be in the situation that we are in currently. We have a couple of SIPS recipients who will not receive funding from us in the future. And that is because of just a couple of a handful of things. So that's why these additional requirements have been put into place. You were not one of them, but unfortunately, because of it, you will have to find, no matter what, you will have to find a sponsor. You are eligible for 2.0 because we actually talked, the team and we talked about your particular program. You are eligible for 2.0 with a partner or with a
Okay.
sponsor. So
Do
you will,
do I
and technically for what, but you can decide if you want to go for 2.0 or if you just want to stick at 1.0 because you see the other things that are involved. Like if you think, hey, I'm ready, let's go, right? Get that sponsor, submit your application.
but what I'm understanding you're saying is even if I did 1.0, I still need a partner,
You don't
correct?
have 24 months.
Okay. Now, well, that helps me because I wasn't reading that properly. Do I call, or how do I decide who that sponsor is? Is that something that I get from you guys, or like
That's
does
something
the
based on your relationships that you'll have to pursue.
okay. All
Okay,
right. Well, thank you. That was still very helpful. Thank you.
absolutely. Good luck. Anitra?
Hi, Holly. You've probably answered this question before. So, for given a quick scenario, if we were going to anticipate doing a health workshop like this summer, like in August, for the funding, do we have to do series of health workshops, or can that be used for one health workshop? How does that work? Or do we have to do it quarterly for it
So
to?
I this is that part where it's going to come down to how much are you asking for one workshop, right?
Mhm.
Like, are you going to ask for $15,000 to do a 1-day workshop? That kind of sounds a little bit like a sponsorship to me, in which
Mhm.
case my advice to you would be like, that's probably not going to go over like it probably won't score high in your application, right? That's what that's what I'm going to tell you. That sounds a little bit like a sponsorship. But if you're
Okay.
like, I want to do a series and this is how we're going to follow up with the different families and do the check-ins, like that would be more compelling. Right.
Okay.
So that's just like
Gotcha.
an idea that would be more compelling. But if really, truly all you want to do is the one, well, then think about what are you asking for? Maybe you're saying, we want to do this workshop, but really we only need about $4,500 in assistance. I'm going to go back to our summer bridge program that we had one time, and there was a great organization that we funded, and we said, tell us what the gap is. You can ask for up to this much amount. They asked for a tiny amount of money. They asked for 20 or 2,000. I think it was like $2,000. That's what they asked for. They received the funding, and it was great. And they told exactly how they used it. It was to do a back to school event. And I remember that the evaluator said, I love that they could have asked for the moon, but they asked for something reasonable. And so
Gotcha.
I'm just going to throw that out there into the universe of don't ask for the max just because you can. Be like, how are you going to spend the money and how is it useful for you? And is the need really there? And is this the best way to use your neighbor's money? That's something that one of our council members says. At the end of the day, this is taxpayer dollars. Is that the best use of your neighbor's money to support this one-off event? Or should I engage in other fundraising for this singular event to do like sponsorships? Right? So
Gotcha.
just think through that. The council's interested in funding services.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
And I'm
you.
sure, and just as a note,
I
like
was
if it's
just throwing
youth
that
mental health,
scenario,
I'm
trying
just
to
like, if it's
see.
a youth mental health like event, like
Mhm.
I would love to point you to people who would probably donate for things like that. Just
Okay.
as a little side note.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question. I think though I did see another question come through in the chat that said, for the partnership documents, you mentioned that an email verifying the partnership would be sufficient. What does that email need to include? Now you have to have a letter, a formal letter that clarifies it needs to be from your partner. Wait, my bad. I understood that question to be the fiscal sponsorship relationship. If it's the fiscal sponsorship relationship that we're talking about, it has to be a very formal letter. Like I think I used the example Capital Area Healthy Start, that they say, yes, we agree to serve in this capacity. For partnership in general, for 1.0, you are just required to say it's who the person is, who the organization is. You're just providing us the contact details and then describing that partnership. I'm going to use the example of food service. We're going to do a program and it's going to be every Saturday during the fall. It's going to be for teens, and we are working with the Frenchtown Neighborhood Revitalization Group that does the food service, and they're going to provide lunch for all of our teens every Saturday in the month of fall. And you just describe it that way. You're 1.0. Now, if you're 2.0, we're going to be looking for a letter that's going to be from that organization that says, yes, we agree to provide XYZ. So 1.0, it's just kind of like handshake agreements with a description. We will call and verify. For For 2.0, right, a little bit more money, we're going to ask you to get that extra document. So
And
you
just
said, what did that email need to include? For 1.0, it's their email address.
gotcha.
Hopefully
And
that
so,
answers the question, Ramon.
yeah, and just for a clarification on that, obviously I'm going to ask the question, but if for the 2.0, when they write the letter, they have to talk about specifically what they sponsor, what they provide a partnership for. If, for example, they sponsor it, and it's not necessarily like they just give funds to it, could that just be sufficing? Like they give us $5,000 a year and that's it?
Yeah, but describe like how, so I would say, how is that $5,000 used? So if every year part of your program, and I have no idea, Ramon, what you do, but let's say that part of it is that you collect, you collect funds so that you can go to Walmart and buy backpacks for kids, right? Maybe that's what it is. And so, and you're going to show in your budget income $5,000, expense backpacks $5,000, partnership letter that's covered. Like we work in partnership with such and such law firm that gives us $5,000 every year for the purpose of buying backpacks. That would be
Got it.
sufficient.
Okay.
Now, I assume that the purchase of the backpacks in said example is somehow related to the program that you're asking for funding for, right?
Cool.
So make sure that it all relates. Like you don't propose services that's directly related to kindergarten readiness, and then you're like, and they buy us hot dogs for our teen event, right? Like, okay, that doesn't align. So
Yeah.
it can't just be general support that you have. It should be a partnership that's related to the program that you're proposing. Excuse me, that you're proposing that we support.
Gotcha. Very cool. Thank you.
Okay. We stayed on for a whole 30 minutes extra going through these questions. These are great questions. Thank you guys so much. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, then I want to thank everyone again. The link is available on our YouTube to come back to. I will go get that organization drop down fixed. I don't know what's going on with that. That will be fixed by midnight tonight. If you want to come back to this recording, it will be published on the website sometime this evening so that you can come back and find the link. It's currently available on our YouTube channel already if you want to find it there. With that, thank you guys, everyone, and good luck. And I look forward to reading your proposals.